Hello, welcome to Anatomy Physiology Lesson 1.04, Body Systems Part 1. The goal for this lesson is to look at several of our organ systems and do the following: be able to identify the major structures of the systems, be able to look at a diagram and label the structures on a diagram, and to get some of the general information about each of these systems. So we're going to start off with the cardiovascular system. And my diagram is in color. Yours is black and white, but you'll notice on mine, we have the two colors. We have red and we have blue, and then we have the systemic circuit and the pulmonary circuit. Before we go to that, let's talk about the major structures. So the structures in the cardiovascular system, and most of you named these a few days ago, but let's go through them again, are the heart, vessels, and we're going to divide these into arteries and veins. So sometimes we'll say the heart, arteries, veins, and blood. And those are basically the what we consider to be the structures, even though blood is a fluid. So we divide the cardiovascular into the systemic and the pulmonary. The pulmonary goes back and forth to the lungs. So pulmono means lungs. And you'll notice on the diagram here where it is actually the outline of a lung, and it's leaving and entering the heart. And I have over here the other side of it. So the left and the right lung have oxygen-rich blood carried to them, or I'm sorry, away from them, and oxygen-poor blood taken to them to be reoxygenated in the lungs. And that's considered to be the pulmonary. The systemic is the rest of the body. So when we think of the head, the arms, the legs, the trunk, everything else that's not the lungs is part of the systemic circuit. And you'll notice it's divided into arteries and veins. It's pretty easy to remember the difference between arteries and veins. Our arteries start with an A, and in the arteries, blood is carried away from the heart. Veins, on the other hand, carry blood to the heart. So arteries take blood away from the heart, veins carry blood to the heart. And for the systemic, when the blood comes back to the heart, it is oxygen poor. When it is carried away from the heart, it is oxygen rich. And that oxygen has to get out to every cell in the body. If you've ever looked at a river system, arteries and veins operate the same way. So we have the little Plum Creek out here, and that flows into, I think, the Blanchard, and the Blanchard flows into the Maumee, and the Maumee flows into Lake Erie. So we have that same type of system. So if we start with arteries that carry blood away from the heart, we have several arteries that branch out, and they go into smaller vessels called arterioles or arterioles. I've heard it pronounced both ways. The arterioles go down to something smaller called capillaries. These are very, very tiny I have to think how to spell this. I think it has two L's. I could be wrong. They're very, very thin-walled, very delicate vessels, and these get the oxygen down to the cellular level, and they pick up the waste carbon dioxide, and they get ready to take it back to the heart. Let's put the heart up here. We don't have veins. We have intermediate vessels called venules. The venules then take the blood to veins, and the veins carry it back to the heart. Oops, I cut off. Let me pull my camera over here just a little bit. I realized I cut off my V's. There we go. So that's kind of the general overview, structures, intro for the cardiovascular system. We're going to be going into heart anatomy later in the year, fingers crossed that the schedule will allow it. And we don't do as much with the vessels as we do with the heart, but we will get into more details with the blood flow. For the digestive system, I'm going to pull up an already color-coded chart. And this is something you should have already colored at home or on your own time. So if you had a diagram on the test, when we're having kind of a pared down test in a few days, you need to be able to label or look at a diagram and know that the digestive system has the esophagus, the stomach, the liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas, the small intestine, the large intestine. I think we talked about the rectum. So those are all structures in the digestive system, and you need to be able to find them, or if you were given a diagram and you had an arrow pointing to this, you need to be able to tell me this is the stomach, this is the esophagus. We're going to stay away from some of the structures in the mouth. We'll do those in more detail later. I don't remember if we did the appendix. Might be good to know this is the appendix, but we're going to get into that in the lymphatic system. Another one that you should have color-coded is the respiratory system. So respiratory is pretty easy. The only structures I need you to know now are the trachea, the lungs, and the bronchi, or the bronchi. So we have the bronchi are fairly complex. You have the primary bronchi, then you go into bronchial trees, but just know that these are the bronchi. So you only have 3 structures to know for the respiratory system: lungs, trachea, and bronchi. And then finally, for the urinary system, or I should say finally for this video, you need to know the kidneys, the ureters, those are both ureters, the bladder, and the urethra. You do not need to know the prostate, that's in men only. So you need to know 4 structures: kidneys, ureters, bladder, and urethra. That takes us, the last 2 systems we're going to talk about are the lymphatic system and the endocrine system, and I'm going to do those in part 2 and part 3. So that will end the video here. Again, after this video, you should have all the major structures for cardiovascular, digestive, urinary, and respiratory. Thanks for watching and have a good day.